Sunday, it gets very, very close to changing things forever. Maybe you've been a laughingstock. Washington, poorly owned. Chicago, poorly quarterbacked. The Raiders, bad at everything. Arizona, don't trust the ownership. Draft in the NFL is different. In baseball, your great draft pick goes to the minors. In the NBA, even if you get the best pick in years, Wemby, he's going to win 22 games. And they're not going to win double or triple that for years to come, potentially. But in football, it's different. 1 year ago from today, the Houston Texans were a laughingstock. And this is the key to the NFL. And politicians, do you bring hope? Something new, something fresh. Do you deliver hope? Nobody delivers hope like the NFL. The Houston Texans. Bad ownership, bad roster, bad quarterback, bad team, bad stink, no inertia. What did they do? C.J. Stroud with the number 2 pick, moved up to the number 3 pick, got Will Anderson. Both are Rookie of the Year. The Houston Texans win their division, win a playoff game, and now they're tied for the 3rd best odds to get to the Super Bowl in the AFC. They were a laughing stock a year ago. 2 Super Bowl contender. 2 picks, 1 coach, got them all right. And that's the league. That is not available. That ascension is not available in other sports. In baseball, you have to buy relevance. And about 6 teams, maybe 4, can afford it. In the NBA, you trade for or buy relevance. But the Stars mostly want to play in about 5 places. Miami, LA, you get it. In the NFL, you draft relevance. And because the kids don't come out as like true kids, they're 21, 22, 23. They've been coached hard. They can deliver and change your franchise if you hit on just 1 or 2 like Houston. Who is Houston this year? Well, Chicago and the Commanders look like if they get the quarterback right, things could get interesting. I think if the Chargers move down, pick up a couple of picks, Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers could be sensational. So Bears, Commanders, Chargers are my guesses as the 3 teams that could change everything based on a weekend. And in a very distracted world, nothing delivers sports urgency like NFL draft weekend. I mean, the Bears have never had a great quarterback. That could change. Washington has had absolute instability because of previous ownership. That should change. And the NFL's finally leaning into this. So I've been a draft Nick forever, and the NFL finally figured it out. People really like this. Last year, round 1 got 11.3 million viewers. That beats everything in the world not called the NFL and Caitlin Clark. Now they're putting it on site. They're putting it in cities. It's a party. 3 of the last 4 drafts have gotten their highest ratings. I don't think the NFL ever quite understood. They never really truly got it, how big the draft was. And the reason the draft is big is because it's tied to hope. The NHL, Major League Baseball, MLS, NBA drafts do not deliver the ability to change a laughingstock to a Super Bowl contender in 1 year. My guess is Chargers, Commanders, Bears have the best shot.
So, okay, I have a few, points that I want to bring up. And, a couple of them are, I feel really, really strongly about. And on the other side, a couple that I'm, I don't know, and I never want to be afraid to just be like, I don't know, I'm on the fence. I'm on both sides of this, I know it's so common to see on TV. They give such like courage of their conviction. They have to give an opinion and it has to be, very like, this is what it is. And it's like, I'm not going to be afraid to do that, I'm going to be, authentic and really convey what I'm experiencing. So the way I look at it, so I completely agree with what he's saying about delivering hope and all of that. Basketball and other drafts, it really ends up just being like 1 or 2 players, right? Everyone's looking at Wembanyama, right? Most people, the average person, probably doesn't even know who else was drafted outside of Wembanyama. They just don't. Who got drafted after LeBron James? Does anyone really know? Probably not, except for obviously some true, basketball fans out there. But with football, it definitely is, right? You can get nice pieces theoretically kind of anywhere in the draft, but it's still obviously near the top. But still can have, it can still have pretty impactful, impacts on your team, without a doubt. Mainly quarterback, right? More than anything. So when there's some, hot shot quarterbacks in kind of in the draft, that everyone's kind of salivating at that, and it gives you a lot of hope, right? Now, the thing I'll say with this is that the Texans had a few great things fall in their place. Some at their own doing, while others were just luck, happenstance. They have a great defensive head coach, which, as you guys know at this point, I'm not a huge fan of defensive head coaches, but of course they can work, but it's pretty much been shown more often than not that at this point, the way how the rules have changed, offensive head coaches are the way to go. Not to mention, if you have a really good OC and you're winning and you're doing well, especially if you make a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl, that OC gets hired. I mean, it just pretty much happens all the time, unless you're super old and you're about to retire. And then the problem is your offense goes out the window. Your quarterback, that relationship, and to me, it's very much similar to a quarterback losing their head coach, because their OC is effectively their head coach in a lot of ways. It's especially if they're the play caller, it's destabilizing. It's uncomfortable. So to me, that becomes a problem when building a team from a longevity standpoint. It can work absolutely on the short term, but in terms of a long-term trajectory, I'm not so sure. And the example that I always love to use is the Eagles. They were flying high with Shane Steichen, calling plays. Shane Steichen got a head coaching job, and it fell apart. You need to have a good OC. Or just a good offensive mind. And when they are the head coach, it's more stable. Andy Reid's not going anywhere. That's the benefit. And so I think with the Texans, for those of you guys who don't know, and again, I just use things like OC and DC rather than saying everyone's name. I always love on TV when they act like they know everyone's name, or they think like everyone else knows everyone's name. And I don't believe it for a second that, Colin, Nick, or any of these guys know every single OC and DC and any of the other assistant coaches and the GMs and the ownerships. No, they get fed the lines right before it and they say the name. So I like to just give a broad stroke to everyone and just say the OC, the DC, management, GM, front office, things like that. But anyway, the OC for the Texans is legit. And I've been banging this drum for a while now. He is great. And he is a young, up-and-coming guy. I think he's like in his early 30s, mid-30s or whatever. And I might be getting this mixed up. He either came from Shannon or McVay. It's slipping my mind at the moment. And he is for real, okay? And so make no mistake about it, that was a huge reason why they were able to right that ship so quickly and why they were able to hit the ground running. Not to mention Stroud is a great quarterback, right? So I'm not trying to say that all that praise goes to the OC and nothing to Stroud. Absolutely not. But it's a great match where you can have success a lot early on. And so that's part of it. I believe if they didn't have a good OC, I think the Texans would have been good, but probably not as good. Not to mention they had a weak schedule, right? They did not make the playoffs last year. They did not make a Super Bowl. They did not do that. So they had one of the weakest schedules in the NFL. That, of course, helps. That doesn't mean that means that they can't beat good teams. I'm not saying that either. So if you're a Texans fan, do not take this as me saying that I think the Texans are trash or they're lucky or this or that. I think the future is very bright for them. Although I am, weary of when they do lose their OC, ultimately to a head coaching job or just wherever, what does that do for Stroud and that offense? And so the reason why I'm bringing this all up is to not pull the Texans down, because I think it was great and I love when you have teams like that, is just to say, do the Bears and the Chargers and the Commanders have that in place? And out of all of them, which one is in the best position to succeed? Now, I think the OC from who's the Commanders coach now, who went to the Commanders now, is actually pretty good. I don't know how great of a head coach he is, but I actually think he's a pretty good offensive mind. And I think he was in a tough situation with Arizona. They're notoriously brutal, terrible management. I believe Kyler Murray is probably a very difficult quarterback to work with. doesn't want to put in the work. And they also had cluster injuries. Even the one season, I forget exactly which season it was. I think it was like his final season. Kyler went down, their backup went down, and then their backup went down. It was a disaster. And then he gets kind of like called out for it because I'm pretty sure that season was during when they were on Hard Knocks or whatever. And it was just like, I don't know what you're expecting his name Cliff Kingsbury to do in that situation. I think it's just like we always need to blame someone, and it's like I just don't know if he was necessarily the one to blame. But that's a question mark for me. But I do err on the side of I believe that he is a very competent at the very minimum OC, offensive mind. And so I think then the Commanders, and I believe in their head coach is a good DC, who's coming from Dallas. And I believe that he's going to be good. So I think that potentially, depending on who they draft, and if they draft someone that can play the game of football, who's competent, then I believe, yes, they can have some success pretty quickly. And then take that to the Chicago Bears. I do not trust their OC and DC as much, or their head coach and their OC. It's not to say that I think that they're a bunch of scrubs. I just think that they're inferior to what they have with the Texans, to what they have with the Commanders, and what they have with the Chargers. And so to me, potentially, and it all depends. It's like I wish I could have this conversation with Harbaugh. I don't know. I don't know what they plan to do, who they plan to draft. But the Chargers should, in theory, be in the position to succeed the fastest because Harbaugh is the offensive head coach. He knows how to build teams. He has a longer track record of success than any of these other guys. And Herbert is an elite quarterback. I know he has not truly been given the opportunity to shine or to prove to maybe some of the people who are a little bit more casual fans. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying in general that you might not, watch a lot of Herbert games or not understand like truly how amazing he is. But he is for real. I always use this example, and I get a lot of Chiefs fans don't like it. But if Justin Herbert was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, Justin Herbert is a Super Bowl winning quarterback as long as he stays healthy. There's just no doubt. I'm not going to tell you that he would have won 3 Super Bowls or would have all the success of Patrick Mahomes. I have no idea, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I'm confident. I am very confident that Justin Herbert absolutely, positively, if he had Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, like all this, he absolutely would. There's just not a doubt in my mind. So now that you're bringing Harbaugh, the real deal, and again, I try not to predict in terms of like how fast can someone rebuild a team because I just don't know. I really have no idea. And the truth is that drafts are such a coin flip, not even a coin flip, a roll of the dice, 2 dice. There's just so many different variables. And with Harbaugh, though, the whole theory is that since he's coming from college, he's recruited a lot of these guys. He's talked to them. He knows the people coming out of the draft very intimately. So these next couple of years, he will really know these players and will be able to really pick and find, the diamonds. Whether that pans out or not, again, no idea. But it is a legitimate theory, and there is some reason to believe that it's accurate. And so I think in that situation, the Chargers are potentially in a better situation. I think Caleb Williams is great, and I think he's going to be great. I think he absolutely can be great. Although, again, I would like to see him with a true offensive mind, someone that he could also build some stability with. And my issue with what Caleb is going into is I think Caleb is probably pretty raw. I think because Caleb can do so much, right? He can do so many different things. Think of it like this. This is going to be a very dumb example, but hopefully you can follow, right? It's like if you're playing a video game, all right? For those of you guys who are maybe a little bit older, who played like the real basic games, like whether it be an arcade game or like a Sega game or, Nintendo, whatever, where there's only like a couple buttons, right? All you did was ever have to keep hitting like A or B, 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 right? That's all you had to keep doing. You had to just like jump and punch, right? And you get really good at that because it's not that hard to do. And then now, as the games get more complex and there's a million different buttons and there's all these combinations, now when you're playing these games, it's like you got to hit, X triangle, circle, LR, R2, whatever, right? And you have to hit all these different combinations to be able to be really good. It's a lot more complicated. That's the way I'm looking at Caleb Williams, is that he can be so great and so elite because of his toolbox is massive. But because of that, there's a lot that can go wrong. you know, and he needs to be honed in on. He needs to be, you know, he needs to be protected at times and pushed at the right time. And when he does do an amazing play, but it turns out bad, he needs the right person. And this is where Andy Reid shines with Patrick Mahomes to either be like, hey, that was a great idea, but this is where it went wrong. Or, hey, I know what you were thinking, good idea, but in this situation, that's not what we need. I know you can do this play, but that's not what we need. Or where it works out, even though it was the bad play, right? Maybe the true play was to check the ball down or to throw it away. But because Caleb Williams is so great and can do what he can do, he was able to make something out of nothing. A good coach will say, you know, that was amazing. That was great. I'm happy we did that. Moving forward, that is not the play, though. I know it worked out now, but it will not work out again in the future, or it could end terribly. Okay, you know, and it's like that's a complex, you know, coaching relationship that you can have with your players, that you need the confidence. You need the person who really, you know, is experienced and has that confidence. That not all OCs or even early head coaches or just anyone in general really have that presence. You know, especially if you're working with a Caleb and you're just like, oh my God, look what he just did. There's other coaches that are just like, high five, that was amazing, man. Like, that was crazy. And there's no growth in that moment. That's where things, to me, can go wrong. It's not that I'm predicting things are going to go wrong. It's just that, you know, I'm raising that flag of that potential. But, you know, again, I'm not going to come up here and say, I think that the Bears are going to win 12 games next season, or Caleb Williams is going to win 5 Super Bowls and this or that. I don't know. The only true thing that I'm truly confident in right now is that the Chargers and Justin Herbert and Harbaugh will be successful, whether it's this season or the next season or the season after. I'm giving it like a 1 to 3 year window, depending on how these, you know, the drafts work and all that, to say, okay, you know, let's see what you got. And I believe they will absolutely be successful. In terms of the Commanders and the Bears, I think those are a little bit bigger question marks, but I would still, even though I believe that the Bears will probably have a better team and a better quarterback, I just think that there's more potential for things to go wrong. And I think the Commanders have a very experienced coaching staff. You know, Dan Quinn, the head coach, the DC from Dallas Cowboys, who's already been a head coach, who coached to a Super Bowl, all that type of stuff. I just think that there's a potential to have a little bit more stability there, but they'll most likely be drafting a worse quarterback. And outside of like the one quarterback that everyone's pretty confident in, you don't know. People were confident Sam Darnold was going to be someone, Zach Wilson. You know, there's always quarterbacks that everyone was expecting to be great and they don't pan out. So I'm not going to even try to guess at any of these other quarterbacks that are up on board. I'm just not confident in guessing whether any of these guys will be great, mediocre, you know, pretty good, maybe a backup. I just have no idea. And so I'm not going to pretend to act like I do. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Do you think that the Bears or the Chargers or the Commanders will be able to be this year's Texans? Let me know in the comments below, or last season's Texans. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree with me or disagree with me. I read every single comment. So whether we agree or disagree, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with the visibility in the algorithm, and it helps combat all the haters and the trolls. Thank you so much, and see you next time.